I read a lot these days and the past few years about systemic design and system thinking and stuff like that. And there's a conversation that maybe is growing in the design field in general. It's like going beyond human-centric design and going beyond a bit the single point solution paradigm, where we are currently, like, we are focusing so much into the solution, we miss the repercussions and the consequences. And well, what are your thoughts on that? And I think it is related to a lot of things we discussed already.
Yeah,
it's kind of big. What is the future of design? Like, the discussion.
Yeah, that's always a good question, I think. So I think that I also see that trend, or the systems as a topic. I think that first of all, I think it's healthy. I think it's a healthy perspective on design. Like, it's the nature of thinking about something as a system helps with a lot of these ethical things, or like what happens when 100 million people do it kind of questions. It just puts those questions in the front. So I think in that way, it's by nature probably a better perspective. And then you might accidentally start talking about what happens to the world if this is super big. So that's good. But then I think like companies are also a system. And when we talk about money and the different departments and stakeholders and stuff, like, it's really just a bunch of different parts trying to achieve something together. And so I think thinking about your company from a systems approach is also a pretty healthy thing. It's inclusive. I think it takes edge cases in a new perspective. So all of those things I think are super good. And I think it's maybe the natural, like, next abstraction on what we're doing. So it might be a natural evolution. Some downsides of it, I think, is that it's making something that's already hard to get your head around even more hard to get your head around. So, like, from the beginner's perspective, systems design is like, what? Like, I think that people need to be walked into systems. I think you almost have to go through the single point first, at least as an introduction, just so that the scope of the conversation is more basic. So let's talk about a screen, or let's talk about a button or a flow or something first. Like, forget the world. Just let's talk about the checkout flow as 4 screens and start there. And I think that once you start to feel like the flow is one thing and that fits into a bigger picture, then you kind of expand out and you can talk about the company or different kinds of users, like, as versions of things, and then the company fits into the market somehow. And like, or if it's a platform for like a social platform, you need to think about the individual actions, and you need to know there's a bigger picture, but it's just too hard. I think. But yeah, so that's trade-offs, I suppose. But I like systems a lot. And then on the topic of future of design, and maybe related in there, I think I've started talking more and more about data science and how it's related to UX.
Yeah.
And I think last year I worked for a year on a platform that was super data heavy, and the whole team was data engineers and data scientists except for me. And I think or me and one other guy. But I think in most companies, trying to get a good data scientist is like a recruiting challenge because they're so in demand. So I think most companies have 1 or 2, and that's a luxury. And this team I was on was a whole team just that. So I was just like thrown in the fire in a way. And I have worked with lots of stuff that involves data and where engineering is a big concern UX-wise. But I don't think I had worked on something that was such a pure data, like, science environment. I mean, immediately I realized that there's a huge place for UX designers in the data science conversation, as nobody understands what the data scientists do. And sometimes even on the same team, it would be nice if there was somebody that was translating in, like, presenting the findings of data science in a way that's a bit more. But then if you want to have a stakeholder meeting about data science stuff, no chance. Like the sales guys are not even going to be close. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a place for UX people, and as cheesy as it sounds, like storytelling type skills, to be able to translate data science insights into business hypotheses or design directions or whatever. And mm-hmm. there's, as we've talked about, if like a little bit of statistics intuition is really useful in UX, and like a little bit of probability helps you understand how people move from page to page around a website. And on the business model thing, if you can think about, like, if I work with some cognitive biases or improve the usability of each step, like, it might not be a big thing to add 5% to every step of the checkout until you kind of work out what that effect really is. Or, I don't know, like a little bit of intuition around models and like, mm-hmm. what does machine learning really do? That kind of stuff makes you a smarter UX designer. Or if you have to design something like search, or I'm sure the people at Netflix, the UX designers, think about recommendation engines a lot. Mm-hmm. That's a very data heavy thing that you don't see at all as a user.
Yeah.
So like that whole data science world, I think, is part of the future of design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm currently working close to a project related to search engine and how you create results that are meaningful for the users. Mm. And I was at the beginning, I said, okay, it's clearly a challenge. It's a real challenge to understand how you can, what are the criteria to say something is relevant for someone.
Yeah.
And well, I'm working in a specific field, so the world is small, so the users there's not so much users, so it makes it maybe easier in some way, but in general speaking, thinking of algorithms and data science as if it was speaking of people, real mm-hmm. humans, and what it means, in reality, to understand what everything means regarding even the numbers and what it tells about people behaviors and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's important.
And that place where I was working, it was actually a platform, like an internal platform for a team of investors that worked there. Mm-hmm. But that team of investors was not even close to enough users to use analytics or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We were talking about like 25, 30 people. So you can't talk about engagement as a metric. My funny thing there was, I said, we can't measure engagement because if that's my metric, I'm just going to lean around the corner and tell everybody to go use it, and they're going to do it. Get perfect engagement. But so then the data science team actually, like, we had to find other ways to figure out what quality means. We couldn't use the user behavior as a guide because it's just statistically irrelevant. 3 people show up and it swings the whole thing. So then a lot of my time was spent with data scientists exploring the data and trying to figure out, if I want to find this, how would I get there in the tool? Mm-hmm. Can I get there in the tool? And trying to find real cases from investors and just sort of using them as ways to explore. And mm-hmm. But that whole thing, I mean, we sat next to each other because we were talking to each other so often. And that was when it made me realize that this is what UX looks like, 5 years, 10 years out, when every company has data science teams, and that's just what you do.
Yeah, agree. And embedding the data scientist as I think embedding developers and business people into the research phase where you discover how people are making sense of what they're saying. Mm. It's not just how they behave is also how they make sense of it.
Right. Yeah, and the data scientists found it equally useful.
Yeah.
To have. I spent a lot of time just interviewing investors about how they work.
Yeah.
But then it would, when I came back to the data science team and would say, like, do you know that they really only look at a few things, like when they quickly assess a company up front, and it's these 5 things, and this is what they mean. And the data science was like, wow, okay, well then let's focus on that. And, I mean, kind of straightforward stuff, but it determines the roadmap too.
Yeah.
For the product, so it's a good two-way street.
Mm-hmm.